critical of the inquiry about that decision, the time it took, the money it cost. Now that you've heard the findings of the report, was it worth waiting for?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that 7 years is far too long for anybody. It all could have been come out in 3 years ago. It would have saved those families a lot of anguish. We would have had better government if we'd had the report 4 or 5 years ago. But of the actual conclusions, I think that Chilcot has done a very good job in lancing a national boil in Britain. There's been profound mistrust in Britain for 13 years because many in the country have felt that they were lied to by Tony Blair and by the government about the reasons for going to war, the way in which the war was fought, and the post-war total catalogue of mistakes in Iraq. And the report is frankly totally devastating. It is singular in the way that it points the blame at the inadequate government decision-making process, the legal advice wholly inadequate, the intelligence services flawed, the post-war planning, the military planning flawed.
But Mr. Seldon, let me just interrupt you for a second. You say the report is devastating. Was there anything fundamentally new in the report that hasn't already been either mentioned, proved, or at least alluded to in the extensive body of work, both journalistic work and other types of writing, your own work, about the decision-making process?
All of that has been said in books that I've written and books that other people have written. In 13 years, there have been many, many millions of words written about the Iraq inquiry. So there was nothing new. But what is important, and this is the key point, is that this is the official report into it. So the fact that this report is saying these things is enormously significant because this is such a powerful, well-funded, well-established body. It is very damning and very damaging for the British government that the individuals who took these decisions have been so criticised. And I think it also comes at the end of the commemoration last week in France at the Thiepval Memorial on the Somme of that other devastating war, the Great War 100 years ago. I'm walking through France to create a permanent pathway for peace along the entire Western Front. We're walking at the moment, we're coming up.
Mr. Seldon, if you would allow me to take you back to the issue at hand here. You've written extensively about Tony Blair. Could you tell us something about his state of mind at the time that he made the decision and whether it has changed since he's made that decision and seen the public outcry after it?
Well, I think his state of mind was pretty calm at the time in early 2003. This was a time of unbelievable tension with trying to persuade international partners to come behind the invasion, with enormous dissent in Britain, within his own party, within the government, within the British nation. I think it was extraordinary how calm he was. Perhaps it would have been better if he was more unnerved, less calm, and more mindful of the profound reservations that many good people in this country had.
And since then?
Since, I think it's been surprising and disappointing that he hasn't come forward and said, look, I did what I thought was right at the time. With hindsight, I made mistakes. I was under too great pressure to make these decisions, and I frankly got it wrong. I think he would have been a better human being had he actually, and as well, it would have been very good for him himself in terms of his own inner cleansing if he'd actually come out and admitted the transparently obvious mistakes that he made. And it would have been cathartic for the nation, and we would have avoided this 13 years of waiting for this official confirmation.
Anthony Seldon, author of Blair Unbound and British historian, thank you very much for fielding our